So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jarad.
I'm Brandon.
And a former 24/7 champion has retired from the NFL for a second time. We'll talk about that and, of course, the real big news, Forbidden Door, and so much more this weekend as another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast starts right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast is here and on the air with Brandon. I am Jarad. As always, make sure you're following the show at Heel to the Face on a weekly basis to get all the links and everything you need to know. As we are coming up on Forbidden Door this upcoming Sunday night. It's weird because you have AEW pay-per-view just about a month ago, and they're kind of... We're not used to this back to back. We're used to it from WWE, but not so much from AEW.
For sure.
It's tough for AEW because of the fact that they don't put on their pay-per-views like we were talking last time, how they're 4 or 5 hours long. There's so much wrestling and they're so intricate and every match is so drawn out, but you give that excuse because there's not that many of them. But now we're following up Double or Nothing with this, and I imagine this card is just going to follow up with another It's like following up WrestleMania with WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. Here's the thing. You got 10 matches on the schedule. So, it's like, I mean, they're not
9 on the main card, yeah.
And here's the thing. Assuming they're not all going to go 30 minutes, but say they did. All of them went 30 minutes. Some are going to go longer. Some are going to go shorter. That's a 5-hour show. And
I imagine some, if not more than one, are going to go 30 minutes. And I imagine most are going to, I would say...
I'd say the majority of them.
I say maybe only
15.
one match goes under 15. Or maybe only one match goes under 10, I would say that.
Which match is that?
I don't know which match is that, but I'm just saying based off of statistics and probability.
I would say I think all matches are going to be at least 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah,
I don't see anything in the single digits on this card. This card there's so many great matchups. It's one of those things.
Maybe like the Thunder Rosa Tony Storm match, maybe that goes like 9 minutes.
I think
or something. Because 9 minutes is still... 9 minutes isn't as short as you think it is.
No, I get that, but I don't. It's a women's championship match. It's a world title match. So I don't see that going 9 minutes. To me, that's more of a 15-minute match for me. That's how I'm looking at it.
All right. Well, we'll talk about the Forbidden Door card in full in just a little bit, but we're going to rewind things back to this past Friday night when WWE broke that emergency break for emergency glass just in case you need it. In their version of, I guess, a fire extinguisher, if you will, to put the fire out. And the fire being WWE has got the talent is not the healthiest with Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. We know all that. So what are we going to do for Roman Reigns? Who's going to be next on the docket? And it's Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, I mean, big shocker there. I'm not really shocked. I don't think anybody else really was.
No, and here's the thing, and a lot of people, including myself, I love the Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns matches in the past. Don't get me wrong, but in this case, I understand you got to do what you have to do, but at the same time, does that mean I'm going to be excited for it? Do I have to be excited for it?
I mean, I don't think anyone's really that excited, are they? At this point, I mean, it's one of those things where it's been drawn out so many times. Like, I'm gonna watch the match because it's Brock and Roman, but am I that amped up, that pumped up for the match? No, absolutely not. But it's still Brock Lesnar, and yes, I know we've had many conversations about Brock Lesnar over the years, but in this point, in case of emergency, you're breaking the glass. In this case, you don't got. There's not too many there's not too many other options that are as good as Brock Lesnar. Let's just put it that way. So if you got to have somebody come out of the bullpen, so to speak, not a bad guy to come in and take care of business.
And I'm fine with Brock Lesnar making a return. I guess I wish maybe they brought him back in a different capacity. Because I understand you got to sell SummerSlam. It's in a stadium. You obviously had your issues with Money in the Bank, having to move to a smaller venue. You have 2 stadium shows. You wanted to have 3, but you have 2 at least coming up with the Clash of the Castle and SummerSlam. You need some big names. Brock Lesnar, John Cena. You need those guys. But I guess my thing with Brock Lesnar is I wish he came back in just a little bit different of a capacity. Maybe him and John Cena go at it again. And when it comes to Roman Reigns, you're saying, well, then who does he face? That's a good question. Maybe Roman Reigns' championship matches essentially against these subpar guys or these not Brock Lesnar, not grade A players, so to speak. Maybe that continues a little bit while maybe the main event of SummerSlam isn't Roman Reigns. Maybe he's on the card, similar to what we just saw at Slammiversary. Now, this was the main event, but Josh Alexander took on Eric Young. That
Hell of a
wasn't
match, by the way.
great match, but at the same time, that's not, your Bound for Glory main event. That's not your year-long feud. That's your, I just won the championship against Moose in what was essentially your main event, your year-long feud match.
That was a hell of a show, too.
WrestleMania main event match. And now I'm going to start my title defense against some of these people. Normally, WWE does that for the backlashes of the world. The Brock Lesnar, I remember back in the day, fought like Hardcore Holly and some of these other, Orlando Jones, some of these lower guys to kind of get to your next big feud. I understand in WWE terms that's normally SummerSlam where you get your next big feud. But in this sense, where everyone's kind of hurt, maybe postpone the Roman Reigns, maybe have him go against somebody a little bit lesser than, and then make your SummerSlam main event like a John Cena versus Brock Lesnar versus somebody else. Doesn't have to be that championship match.
So would you rather see Roman versus Riddle again? Is that something you'd want to see?
Maybe Roman versus Riddle. I understand, obviously.
That was a great match this past week.
It's very difficult to do that with the stipulations they put in front of that match this past week on SmackDown. But you know what I would have been kind of interested in? I don't know if it's too early in the sense of they're trying to make this guy bigger and better, but you don't know. But why don't we start building up Omos?
I mean, that's certainly a possibility. I mean, Omos is, he looks the part, so, why not? But here's the thing, and this is no disrespect to Omos. I don't think he's ready for that.
No, and I don't think he's ready. Maybe you give him like a month or something. I don't think this would be...
He needs more than that. He needs more work. And here's the thing, he's got a lot of, he's got the look. He's athletic. He's a very athletic dude. Like, for how big he is, he's a very athletic guy. But he's still very green in the ring. So for me at this point, I think there's got to be a better way to, put Omos over, so to speak. You can't just throw him right against Roman Reigns right out the gate, and right after MVP becomes his guy, his mouthpiece for the last, couple months. You got to build it up a little bit more. Like, I would rather see Omos just dominate like the mid card, so to speak, and then work his way up, and then he's working with quality opponents, and then eventually he gets up to Roman.
Yeah,
because you don't just put anybody in the match.
I wasn't expecting and I think big things are coming for Omos, I wasn't expecting the SummerSlam match, essentially if it's against Omos, to be one of those big things. Pretty much be like the infancy stages of Omos, and then later on I guess here's a better way to put it. So Brock Lesnar, and I understand that he was a freak of nature, and he kind of came in and he was a big deal. But originally, Brock Lesnar wasn't the Brock Lesnar. Let's say the first run of Brock Lesnar, let's say the first 6 months of Brock Lesnar back in 2002, wasn't to the Brock Lesnar that we have today, where he could suffer a loss to a Shelton Benjamin or a Kurt Angle or somebody, and it wasn't as big a deal as it is today. So maybe that Omos, or even a Batista, when Batista was Deacon Batista with Devon Dudley. It wasn't the later on Batista that was the animal that was world champion. So if like a Deacon Batista, who has the same size clearly, on a SmackDown fought the world champion, would have clearly lost, but would have been a good story for the time being, and then later on, years down the road, Omos can fight Roman Reigns or whoever the champion is in the more dominant main event level Omos. This is more just like the mid-card Omos, kind of just filling space, getting a shot at the title. The Mark Henrys of the world, when they would just get a shot at the title when there wasn't like a SmackDown Championship pay-per-view match, when you're like, this had like a 3-week build. They lose, Mark Henry versus Batista, let's say. Batista beats Mark Henry, Batista moves on, Mark Henry goes back into the mid-card kind of situation. And then maybe later on, years later, gets another shot as a different version of himself. So I guess that's a possibility. The Matt Riddle thing would have been a possibility. I don't know why, essentially, with that being the case, we didn't move Matt Riddle's championship match at least until Money in the Bank. I get it, SmackDown's more of the eyeballs, and, Fox wants some big-time matches, but it just stinks we kind of ruined that match already.
Yeah, but it was a good match. For the Fox audience, that was pretty good. Riddle and Roman, they tore the house down. That was a great match. That was one of the best TV matches I've seen in a long time in WWE.
I think like a good example is John Cena was on the card at WrestleMania in New Orleans a couple of years ago, and he was on the card against The Undertaker. But it wasn't a really big time built up match because of the fact that we didn't know if, Undertaker was going to accept the challenge, that whole thing. So it wasn't built up like John Cena versus The Undertaker. It was built up similar to like, if this match happens, it's cool. If it doesn't happen, it's not selling the tickets. So that's what I guess I mean with like SummerSlam. We could revolve it around the big names. You need the John Cenas. You need Brock Lesnar. You need these guys to be there. But maybe they could be there in a different role, and then Roman Reigns can be there. You can put Roman Reigns on the truck, Roman Reigns on the poster. I guess better example would be Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman's a main event guy. Braun Strowman was at WrestleMania in New Orleans. He was in a throwaway tag team match where he won the tag belts with Nicholas. Okay.
Yeah.
But he's a big time guy, and he was on the poster. He's on the program. He's definitely there. Ronda Rousey, another one. She was there in kind of a gimmicky tag team match, making her debut. You didn't have her in the main event. You didn't have her essentially being the main thing to sell tickets. Braun Strowman wasn't the main person selling tickets. So sell tickets around John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. Sell tickets around Brock Lesnar versus Omos. Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. Sell tickets around that. Have Roman Reigns on the card. Make sure all the kids know Roman Reigns will be there. But this is such a stacked card that Roman Reigns isn't in the main event. Roman Reigns isn't your main event. Roman Reigns is having a middle-of-the-pack title defense, similar to what we saw at Hell in a Cell. We saw it was around Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. That was your main event. If Roman Reigns was facing Matt Riddle, that would have been, the second, third match on the card.
That's not a bad idea. But again, I don't at this point. I don't mind Brock Lesnar in this situation. That's just how I look at it. I think Brock Lesnar, he has enough appeal to, obviously, to sell some more tickets at SummerSlam. That's just really what it comes down to.
I'm fine with him being there for sure. Put him in a match in which we just had this match at WrestleMania, and this match at WrestleMania had so much on the line, in where it was like, this is it. This is the unification, undisputed, final time. We fought a million times, but after this, no more. And then to do that only 2 months or 3 months later, to have him come back, and it's going to be interesting. I guess I'm interested to see exactly what the reasoning is. Because, I know Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns has been fantastic on the mic. Roman Reigns has been fantastic in promos. So one of his promos, especially this week on SmackDown or in the future, is going to be, I already smashed him. Why should I even face him?
That's
so what reasons are we going to give, I guess?
Because it's Brock freaking Lesnar. That's what it is. That's the
reason.
That's
is
what
Roman
it is.
Reigns going to essentially want Brock Lesnar, want to even accept this challenge? What story is going to be around this?
Here's the thing. If someone gives, not even Roman Reigns, but if somebody else says, oh, yeah, here we go, Brock Lesnar jumping the line, nobody's really going to say that. Whether it's real or obviously scripted, you're not going to tell Brock Lesnar, oh, hey, you can't jump the line. Who the hell do you think you are?
I remember that a couple years ago. That seemed to be one of your takes.
It was, yes. It was one of my takes. But in this case, I like this newer version of Brock Lesnar. That's something I really like. I think it's refreshing. Yes, he's still the beast. He's still this and that. But I think you're seeing the best work of Brock Lesnar right now. I know he's in a limited capacity, but he can talk on the stick. He's like, for the longest time, Paul Heyman was his mouthpiece, so no one knew. Hey, can Brock Lesnar really talk? Brock Lesnar can talk pretty damn good. Last time I checked, and he's a pretty damn good wrestler. So for me, he's the complete package now, where he doesn't need a mouthpiece to tell the world what his next plans are. So right now, this is the best Brock Lesnar I personally have seen in WWE. So yes, my take was, even going back to previous podcasts, even like a year or two ago. Yeah, am I a big fan of the part-time stuff? Not at all. I don't like it. But in this case, like you mentioned, you have injuries to some big guys, some big names. Who are you going to bring up? You're not going to call up somebody from NXT to throw his hat in the ring against Roman Reigns. It wouldn't make any sense. So WWE says, hey, we got somebody who's actually, not really here at the moment, that's legitimate enough to face Roman Reigns, and nobody's going to say a damn thing, and that's Brock Lesnar. So I'm okay with it in this situation.
I'm looking at the Money in the Bank card, which is next Saturday night, and I'm kind of thinking, what about this? It's obviously too late. It's not going to happen. But Bobby Lashley's facing Theory for the United States Championship. Bobby Lashley beats Theory, becomes the new United States Champion. Boom. Champion versus champion. What does Roman Reigns want? He wants more gold. All the belts on the line. Roman wants the U.S. belt. I mean, it's not going to happen. And then again, I'm not against Brock Lesnar being there, for sure. Brock Lesnar can be there. You know who else can be there? Goldberg can be there. Goldberg can be anywhere he wants to be. If you want,
no,
and I know you say that, no. I'm fine with Goldberg.
He can't wrestle. He can't wrestle anymore.
But that's perfectly fine.
He can't, no, I don't want him anywhere near a
Goldberg
ring.
was at SummerSlam 2019. I don't know if you remember this. Remember his little gimmick with Dolph Ziggler?
Yeah, no.
No, he didn't leave with the world title. He didn't leave taking the dream match away from anybody.
He can't wrestle anymore. He's a liability in the ring now. Like he literally almost broke the neck of Undertaker. That to me signal, like we all knew, like, oh hey, maybe Goldberg should slow it down. Him almost putting Undertaker legitimately in a wheelchair after a botched move. That tells me he
So you don't want him in the ring in any capacity,
unless he's just talking. Talking and maybe just maybe cutting a promo or just kind of just being there as a guest or something. Sure, I don't want him wrestling anymore. I just don't. Like the difference between Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar could still wrestle and still get that person.
I guess what I'm saying is that
out of there safely.
If Goldberg could wrestle, I don't mind.
Yeah, sure. If he could wrestle, absolutely.
Throw him in there against Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah, and that's fine. But he can't. I don't think he can wrestle anymore. And that's no disrespect to Goldberg. That's just what I've seen in every in his latest runs. It hasn't been really pretty. And he's even said that. Oh man, I was not good. What do you think's going to change? There's one thing that you're not going to win against, and that's Father Time. So like, you just there's certain things you just can't do anymore. You can still do other things in the business, but he should just not wrestle. I just don't. In his case, you're taking away a spot from somebody who at this point is more capable in the ring.
So it seems apparent that Drew McIntyre is going to face whoever the champion is at Clash at the Castle. Do you see Drew McIntyre versus... Because again, how are we going to have Brock Lesnar essentially lose again? Do the Goldberg gimmick where he just keeps losing, but he keeps coming back, and we're supposed to put him at the front of the line? But if Brock Lesnar... Do you see Brock Lesnar maybe winning this time, ending all of this at SummerSlam? It's got to end sometime. There's really no good time, I guess. SummerSlam's as good a time as any. And then maybe Brock versus Drew, and this be a rematch of COVID WrestleMania with the chance for Drew McIntyre to maybe get the win over Brock Lesnar, win the championship, but this time, after, essentially beating Brock Lesnar in front of nobody in 2020, getting it full circle where he gets to beat Brock Lesnar in front of, 50,000 in, his home country.
I mean, that idea on paper sounds good. I just don't see it happening.
Or in his home continent.
I would just say in his home.
In the United Kingdom.
Yeah, in the UK.
He's from Scotland. This is going to be in Wales.
It's all part of the part of the United Kingdom. Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't mind that, like what you're proposing. That doesn't sound bad. I just don't see Roman losing the title. I just don't see it. I think Roman Reigns is going to be the champion for. I know he's been the champion for going close. He's getting a little bit closer to 2 years.
Yeah, it'll be 2 years by Clash of the Castle.
Will it be 2 years by then?
Yeah, because it was a week following SummerSlam.
Dang,
and SummerSlam, I believe, was
crazy.
like August 20th. And then we had the Payback pay-per-view, which was like a week later, which is really weird. It was really essentially a pay-per-view made to crown Roman Reigns the champion.
Yeah, at this point, you can't take the title off. Let's wait it out. I think Drew and Roman at the castle will be fun.
You know what I think would have been a better break in case of emergency? Because essentially it's better in general, even if without an emergency. Bray Wyatt came back.
Yeah, but what if those ties are really severed at this point and the wounds?
I don't think they are. I mean, everybody's been mentioning about how his social media has been changing back to, Fiend stuff and how he's not shying away from it.
Well, the way he exited this previous time here, that was not a good exit. Like from all accounts out there by the folks that that at least I trust out in the reporting world, it wasn't a good departure. So like, have they mended those fences? And I get it. Yes, you can mend fences. For Pete's sake. We had Ultimate Warrior go to the Hall of Fame, after everything that happened with him and Vince, So anything can happen in the world of wrestling. We know that. But is it still too soon?
Those are questions I don't have the answers to.
Dude, let me ask you this then. Next time you see Bray Wyatt, I'm just going to put you on the spot.
Next time I see him, so I'll see him tomorrow at Starbucks. We always meet at 8 o'clock in the morning to just chit-chat.
Oh, the one downtown. Sweet.
Yeah.
But realistically, where do you see Bray Wyatt? Like, what ring do you see him in? Do you see him in an AEW ring? Do you see him in a WWE ring? Or do you see him somewhere else completely?
I'm on WWE.
Okay. I'm with you on that. I just don't know. I think it's more it's not an if, it's more of a, we just got to figure out when the hell it's happening.
Well, there's no time like the present.
Sure.
With SummerSlam and all those big events coming up. I think it was about 1 year ago, it was right before SummerSlam, that he was officially, now obviously we hadn't seen him since WrestleMania 2021, but it was right around SummerSlam. I think we were expecting him to make his return, and then he got officially released.
Yep, he said, see you later.
So it's been about a year since we've seen Bray Wyatt, or at least he's been on the roster. It's been over a year since we've seen Bray Wyatt.
I got to ask you, I know we're kind of bouncing around a little bit. Slammiversary, did you actually watch the whole thing?
Yeah, a good card, Slammiversary in Nashville.
I watched the whole thing. I watched the entire...
Impressive. Brandon watching an entire Impact Wrestling.
And I watched, and the best part was, I watched it live.
Wow.
I watched it live. I know. And some of you out there are probably like, wow, because yes, have I taken a crap on Impact Wrestling, TNA, whatever you want to call it over the years? Yes, I absolutely have. But I will tell you this right now, I thoroughly enjoyed the pay-per-view. It was a great show. Every match was good. It was just fun. It was fun all the way around. I really enjoyed the main event. Josh Alexander and Eric Young, they tore the house down. That was a hell of a match. A lot of great false finishes, including where they took the protective padding off the off the ring mat. And you thought Eric Young for a second was going to pull off the win, and then nope, there goes Alexander doing his thing. And then at the end of it, Josh Alexander gets the win. It was a good match. And I think we all knew Alexander was not losing the title, but how the match went down was really good. I'm not surprised by Jordan Grace. I'm not surprised by that. She's a very dominant competitor. I really liked the Impact Originals and the Honor No More. That was good. That was a fun match.
Yeah, we saw Nick Aldis and Davey Richards. Nick Aldis actually, I don't know, did they have him come as, now it says Nick Aldis on the card here, but was he as, because it wasn't like Magnus in Impact Wrestling?
He was Nick Aldis.
I feel like in Impact,
I think he was Nick Aldis.
He went by Magnus. I know he went by Nick Aldis, I think, this past weekend, but he's also known for his time in Impact under the ring name Magnus.
Yes, he was under Magnus at, obviously at one point.
His time there. Because right now he's mostly known for his time in NWA.
Dude, I gotta tell you, PCO, that old son of a bitch, he took the biggest beating out of anybody in that match. And he's like, I think he was the oldest guy in the ring.
Yeah.
PCO is not young by any means. I'm curious how old.
54.
Yeah, he's like my dad's age. God bless him. And he was in there with guys that are he's got them by a few years. And I will tell you this right now, watching that match, he absolutely took the biggest beating out of anybody in that match. So, and he was the oldest guy in the match. So kudos to him. That was fun to watching an older guy like that doing some stuff.
Crazy thing. Yeah, he got, I want to say his start, but yeah, he goes all the way back to the Quebecers. WrestleMania 10. He's been going around. Yeah. It's hard to watch him now and realize that he was, one of the old Quebecers taking on the Hart Foundation back in the 90s.
I know, and he still looks good in the ring.
And it's a whole different gimmick. He's not one of these old guys kind of going off of that old like Repo Man, IRS. It's like a whole different thing he's got going where you wouldn't even know he was one of these gimmicky, early 90s WWF superstars, if you will.
Let me ask you this. How did you like the finish with the Good Brothers defeating the Briscoes? That was pretty good.
That was a good match, and that's exactly, we're looking at the card right now to kind of go back to what I was telling you about, where 10 minutes isn't as short as you think it is. Mike Bailey, he won that Ultimate X Division match to kick off the show, 9:50, and the Good Brothers beat the Briscoes in 10 minutes even. So 10 minutes isn't as short as you think it is.
You know what, when I see the times here, I swear Alexander and Young went more than 18:50, man. It just felt like it felt really long. Yeah. In a good way. It was like there was so much action. Now that I didn't see the official time until we just pulled it up. 18:50 for that? That felt like easily almost a 30-minute match.
Well, because it's only the two guys in the ring, essentially. So like the Impact Originals match was about 18:45, but you have so many guys and there's so much going on that time kind of flies by a little bit more when you're just focused on so much.
There was no super long matches. Like everything was under 20.
Yeah, Impact. Impact pay-per-views similar to WWE in their format. They're not trying to be like New Japan or AEW. Or
they timed out pretty good.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that women's match almost went just shy of 20 minutes. That's pretty impressive right there. But
for
yeah,
sure.
nothing went too crazy. I mean, the X Division match was quick and fast and went 9:50 and did everything essentially they needed to do in the match.
How did you feel about Mickie James' role in that match? By the way, in the match, what did you think about her little role in that to help Jordan Grace?
You know,
It was interesting. It was different.
yeah, it
different
keeps
layer
her
match.
kind of. I mean, what do you think she's coming out for? You know, she's not that old. I don't think she's done with her time in the ring, going
No.
for championship belts and stuff like that.
I just thought it was cool to see her, interject herself in the match and actually, obviously change the result of the match because Jordan Grace was not going to win that match, and then Mickie James kind of did her a solid there,
Yeah, this upcoming Saturday night, I believe it is XPW's Beautiful Disaster. I know we kind of joked about the fact that we were wondering if they were ever even going to have a second show, but this upcoming Saturday, they're going to have a third show, and they've got a match, an 8-woman tournament match. Includes Taya Valkyrie, Chelsea Green, who we just saw this past week at Slammiversary, Deonna Purrazzo, who we just saw at Slammiversary, in what is one of 8 women to be crowned the XPW Women's Champion. And I don't necessarily know if it's under deathmatch rules like some of these other tournaments, but should be interesting. I would say I've seen Chelsea Green and Taya Valkyrie. It's crazy to see them get in. I saw them at the last XPW pay-per-view, and yeah, they are not just your eye candy. Which is kind of scary because they don't wear a lot. So, you get a little wincy a little bit when you see them get cut and, into the barbed wire. I get a little wincy when I watch any of that XPW stuff in general. I enjoy it, but it's a little too much sometimes. But
yeah, it's a little gory.
But good for XPW. I mean, we didn't know what they were going to be doing when they first started here in Rochester on their return. And I thought, this is going to be kind of a flop.
Yeah.
But they've rebounded from that since, so they got a pretty impressive pay-per-view event coming up this Saturday night. But obviously, we're going to talk this Saturday night into Sunday about AEW's New Japan Forbidden Door. I was going to say, we talk a little about Vince McMahon showing up on Raw and SmackDown. We'll skip over that. That's been talked about a lot. Let's just get to AEW Forbidden Door.
Yeah.
If anything more happens in the Vince McMahon saga, we'll obviously touch on that next week. But what match, I think, are you looking forward to most this upcoming Sunday in Chicago with United Center?
Oh, it's the easiest one is you got Jay White, Okada, Hangman, and Cole. That's the match of the night easily.
Yeah, Okada made a debut, I guess, if you will. He showed up on AEW Dynamite this past week. Jay White a few weeks ago. So it's essentially 2 AEW guys against 2 New Japan guys. Yeah, no, I'm excited for this match. And what I think I like about this match the most is the fact that it's a 4-way match. If you watch a lot of Wrestle Kingdom, if you're familiar with Okada's and Jay White's from the Wrestle Kingdoms only, it's a lot of one-on-one matches. They really give, Okada, Omega, White, Okada, they give these guys a lot of 20, 30, 40-minute one-on-one matches. There's not a lot of variety. Any of these Wrestle Kingdoms are always one-on-one matches. So essentially to see Okada and Jay White and Adam Page in some variety of like a mixed man match, instead of just a traditional... to be honest with you, we haven't really seen anything like that going back to WWE with the Brock Lesnars of the world. Brock Lesnar, since he's been back, it's always Roman Reigns, John Cena, one-on-one. We don't really mix it up too much. I think at Great Balls of Fire, I think it was like a fatal 4-way or triple threat. But that's going on like almost 4 years ago now.
I mean, that could be the main event, and I wouldn't be mad at all.
So I'm curious to see these great competitors who'd all be good, and we've seen before in these one-on-one sagas, if you will, in a mixed man match where, it's not just to focus on one individual at a time.
No, I enjoy that. I think that's fun. Let me ask you this. What are your thoughts on Will Osprey and Orange Cassidy?
No, Will Osprey, he has just been growing and growing, and I was wondering if COVID was going to really kind of stunt that. Obviously, AEW, in my eyes, a little bit stunted Will Osprey's growth because he was one of those big New Japan guys that everybody watched with Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, He was on those cards in which we were all watching because of those guys I just mentioned. And when they jumped over to AEW and AEW became essentially the new alternative for the American audience, him and Jay White kind of were still in New Japan, but didn't get that same audience. Yeah, sure, there's a lot of people watching New Japan, but the casual fans who were watching for some of those other guys were now getting their fix with AEW. So he was kind of getting forgot about. He got hurt out there in New Japan, so he was out for a little bit.
I got to be honest with you.
But now he's starting to grow back on that trajectory.
I wish there was a poll of like how much of the AEW audience like really watches New Japan. Because I got to tell you, when Okada came out on Dynamite this week, like you as soon as you hear that little like it sounds like like I don't have the greatest way of explaining it, but it sounds like when you drop change on the floor.
Yeah.
Like
Well, that's kind of his entrance. Yeah, right there.
Well, I was trying to think of the best way to do
Yeah,
it.
the jingle. I guess.
Yeah, it's like a little jingle. As soon as you hear that, you can see the AEW audience, like the crowd, like there. I was telling you before, I would, like there's that girl on there, like she's a gift now forever because of her reaction, and the crowd popped. So it's like, well, obviously they're schooled enough in New Japan to know who Okada is. So it's like I've always been curious, like, and I know MJF had alluded to it, like, oh, I'm not like he would say, well, I'm not a fake follower of New Japan Wrestling, and so it was kind of like. It was kind of like a dig at AEW. So it's like my thing is like, do you think the majority of AEW audience is a at least a casual viewer of New Japan? I feel like they are.
Yeah, I would definitely say the AEW audience is probably it's not like WWE. We've talked about this before. It's an alternative. They're not even trying to be WWE. They're more or less trying to be the American version of New Japan. They're trying to be New Japan for the American audience. That's essentially what AEW is trying to be. They're trying to be more wrestling. They're trying to be less gimmicky. They're trying to,
it's just good.
For lack of a better word, what I just said, the New Japan fix for the American audience. That's why I felt like a lot of people like Okada and White might have gotten a little forgotten about when some of these guys went off. And, it'd be like if some of the big names, I don't watch UFC a lot, but when I've watched UFC in the past, I knew like 4 or 5 big names. And when there was a pay-per-view and they were in the main event, I was watching those guys. Now, if those guys went off and formed their own MMA company, then yeah, I'm probably not watching a lot more UFC. I'm not going to be like, but I still know this cruiserweight, this lightweight. I'm probably going to, I only saw the lightweight that I'm mentioning because I was watching for, Derek Lewis or George St. Pierre or some big name. I only saw him as the undercard for George St. Pierre. And now that George St. Pierre is on this big company or this new company they created, I might not see these guys anymore because I'm not going to watch both.
I'll give credit to the Cody Rhodes, the Chris Jerichos, the Kenny Omegas of the world because without those guys, I probably wouldn't have known really much about Okada, for example. You know what I mean? Like Okada is, obviously he's a legend, across the pond. You know what I mean? Like across the far side of the world.
The Pacific Pond.
Yeah, the Pacific Pond. Yes, you gotta go. Yeah, you gotta take. It's a long flight, so
you gotta go the other way.
Yeah, you gotta go way out here. I wonder what the flight is on that from like New York to here. That's gotta be.
You would go New York to L.A. Then L.A. and I think it's 10 to 12 hours from L.A. to Japan.
God dang. And then you know what? Speaking of that, Will Osprey, he did that all. He did something with AEW, went to Japan, did a match, came back all in like 4 days.
Yeah.
Man, how do you not have jet lag?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe New Japan's got those private. They do treat their wrestlers a lot bigger there. They maybe get the private planes out there. Japan? They get that treatment. I mean, that's the thing with Japan wrestling.
Do they treat them like gods?
I mean, yeah. I mean, this is kind of like I don't necessarily know, each individual or that kind of thing. But yes, wrestling is much more highly regarded. Always has been. I don't know the current standing of wrestling in Japan. But yeah,
we're there. No, we got boots on the ground.
Yeah, but no, wrestling that's why a lot of indie wrestlers, essentially, their goal is Japan. Before AEW, a lot of people's goal was Japan. It was never WWE. A lot of the Bryan Danielsons of the world, the Kevin Owens of the world, when they were coming up, their goal was Japan.
Look at a guy like Corey Graves. He made his name, across the pond too.
I mean, he made his name in the indies all over. He never really made it so much into New Japan. But Kenny Omega's a good example there.
I thought Corey Graves did. He was world traveled.
He was well traveled and he might have wrestled in Japan, but I don't think ever for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Was it not? Maybe it was under different. Maybe it was like All Japan.
Maybe some other company that. Yeah. I mean, again, New Japan isn't the only company out there.
Well, no, because
they're the big company. They're the WWE out there.
Well, yeah, they have New Japan. They have like All Japan. They got a bunch of different.
They got Noah.
Yeah. They got a bunch of different other.
But like the Kenny Omegas of the world, and still to this day has never been in WWE. And if AEW didn't exist, he still might not be in WWE.
Well, Kenny Omega, yeah, Kenny.
He's the kind of guy. He's the when the Bryan Danielsons were coming up. Now Kenny Omega obviously came up, after Bryan Danielson. But the idea is like when those people were coming up, or even some of the younger people were coming up before AEW, they were looking more to the Kenny Omegas than they were to the Roman Reigns. They were looking more to how do I go that route? I want to go that route. And Kenny Omega made it. Kenny Omega was selling T-shirts left and right at Hot Topic when he never wrestled a minute for WWE, and AEW didn't exist yet.
That's not a bad deal.
The Young Bucks are obviously the same example. They're the tag team that a lot of people are saying, I want to be them. I don't want to be, the Usos. I want to be the Young Bucks.
I mean, you know how I feel about the Young Bucks.
Yes.
I'm an Uso guy. I'm an Uso fan more than the Bucks. It's like we've always mentioned it.
But
It's
yeah,
different
that route,
flavors.
New Japan is if you're in New Japan, you made it. You made it. You're a
for
professional.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Like
It's the same as baseball. It's the same as baseball. If you're in the minors, you didn't make it. If you're in the majors, you made it. If you're in Japan in their pro, you made it as well. If you're in the Japan pro leagues, you made it. If you're in the American pro leagues, you made it. You'd rather be in probably Japan than you would be in AAA in America.
Well, yeah, you probably get paid better.
Well, that is true as well.
I'm just saying.
Women's basketball, I would say you've made it more in women's basketball if you're playing overseas more so than even if you're playing maybe in the WNBA. I know WNBA, a lot of women play here so they can get that game off the ground and they can grow that game. Same with soccer. A lot of people play for MLS teams so they can grow the game here. But, you know, if you're playing for Manchester United or you're playing for the New York Red Bulls, you made it more if you're playing for Manchester United.
Just think of it this way. It's like, you know, everything going on with golf these days. You got PJ and you got that new Live Tour. Money talks. I mean, you're seeing a lot of those PGA
Well, just
guys
prestige, I'm thinking of too, you know, money is definitely true. The women definitely get paid more money, let's say, basketball in Turkey than they do probably in the United States. But, yeah, you've made it more if you're in the Premier League than if you're in MLS.
Oh, for sure. It doesn't even compare, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, yeah, New Japan, you made it if you were in New Japan.
Yeah,
You made it.
and that's the thing, too. Like, the style of wrestling that they have over there, like, it's fun. You don't have to have these cheesy gimmicks. You can just have really good wrestling and have really good matches. And the storylines, just, you know, you see it for yourself, and it's fantastic.
So quickly, let's look at some of these matches and let's see. Zack Saber Jr., obviously, he's a big-time New Japan guy. I've seen him, obviously, when I'm trying to watch other people like the Will Ospreys.
To be announced, Johnny Gargano? No, I'm kidding.
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
There's a lot of
I don't
WWE
know
rumors out
anything.
there.
I'm just throwing a name out.
now,
Who do you see, though? Who do you realistically see facing Zack there? I got, you know, in that TBA where we're supposed to be Brian.
the question is it somebody that's already in the company or is it somebody that's making another debut?
That's why it's good. That's why I'm glad there's some mystery to it. So I
Yeah.
guess we'll have to wait to see on Sunday.
I think a match that could be cut, and this isn't any disrespect to it, but Tony Storm versus Thunder Rosa.
They're not cutting that.
I know they're not cutting
It's
it,
a
but,
world. It's a world title match.
but I think it could be cut because, again, the gimmick of this event is New Japan, AEW, and that's just an all AEW match.
I get yes,
And I get you want to have women on this card because without that you have no women on this card. So I understand that, but I guess my thing is this card has got so much going on.
But how you can spin it is Toni Storm is a former New Japan wrestler. She's a former. She made her mark in Japan, so the Japanese audience loves Toni Storm.
You wonder what the Japanese audience, though, because I mean, this isn't really at the same. You know, this is Americanized, so it's at 8:00 Eastern time. So it's they're gonna have. If you live in Japan, you're gonna have to watch your New Japan wrestlers at 2:00 in the morning, or 5:00 in the morning for a change. You'll be the ones having to watch at 5 a.m. Because of that.
That's tough.
But obviously they're not having it at 5 a.m. here in the States. That'd be kind of weird. But I feel like, again, that match could just, because it's not, this is essentially supposed to be like a WWE Invasion kind of pay-per-view. And there's just so much on the card. I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm looking for places to cut the fat because there is so much on the card. These matches are all going to go long. Tony Khan doesn't manage things like a Vince McMahon. He doesn't manage things
these
like
matches could go
he
30
is
minutes.
just he is just a fanboy who is fine with this being an 8-hour all-night marathon of dream matches. Doesn't need the storylines even go with it. He just wants the right dream matches like you did when you were like a little kid. When you're like, I'd love to see Roman Reigns and Hulk Hogan and The Rock versus Earthquake, and like, you know, and that's how Tony Khan writes things. So that could be a match that could be cut. I mean, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara versus Suzuki and Eddie Kingston. You know, again, I feel like some of these matches, because it originally seemed like this was going to be a niche pay-per-view. This wasn't just going to be Double or Nothing, another all AEW pay-per-view. This was going to be some sort of like niche mixed pay-per-view, if you will, where maybe your Chris Jerichos weren't on the card, but then here we are, and all your main AEW guys seem to be here.
You know what? I will say this. I just think this is going to be, from top to bottom, this could be quite possibly the best pay-per-view of the year.
You say that every day about AEW, though.
Not necessarily, though, because I really enjoyed Slammiversary. That was a hell of a show. Like, I mean, that, like, the last couple weeks, and then we got Money in the Bank next week. So these next 3 weekends, or like this past weekend, this coming weekend, and then the following weekend, a lot of great wrestling. It really is in different companies. This is going to be a lot of fun.
A match that involves no AEW tag team belts, but two others, and that's the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, which are FTR, against the IWGP Tag Team Champions, which are Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb, as well as a third team, Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero. Winner take all the belts on the line. Somebody's leaving as Ring of Honor and IWGP Tag Team Champion. FTR. So FTR is going to be doing what? Triple duty. You're going to have them in New Japan. You're going to have them in AEW, and then obviously they're holding down the Ring of Honor belts.
Yeah, they'll do it. They love it. They love it. I mean, and here's the thing. To me, I don't care. I don't care what anybody says, and you can disagree. You know, our listeners and viewers can disagree, but I will take FTR over the Young Bucks any day of the week. That's just they're just more my cup of tea.
The All-Atlantic Championship is going to make its inaugural debut at this pay-per-view. And, of course, I love about the All-Atlantic Championship. There is, I think, the Japanese flag on there. Nothing says All-Atlantic. More than that, the Canadian flag, the American flag, the Mexican flag, yeah, those things belong on there. But you're being a little silly with your continuity and the Japanese flag on there. And somebody like Tomohiro Ishii, winning the belt would be kind of silly as well if that's where you're going for this. But Pac, Miro, and Malachi Black in this match as well. It's a fatal four-way.
I'll take Miro.
You're going to take Miro. You're going to take the Russian / what was the other? Bulgarian to win the All-Atlantic Championship.
Well, hell, Malachi Black's from the Netherlands,
yeah.
dude.
It's kind of a...
It's kind of a hodgepodge a little bit.
Yeah, I think the name needs a little, maybe like Western, all Western, or Eastern, all Eastern Championship. I don't know. In the sense of like the Eastern countries over there. I don't know.
Yeah,
all not American championships. I guess just like you don't want to say European because that kind of puts it, but is there like a way you could say like non-US?
Euro-Asian. I don't know. I mean, whatever it is. It is what it is for now.
And then an 8-man tag, which again, cool and all because we saw the return of Sting and Darby Allin, dudes with attitude. That reminds me of Shawn Michaels and Diesel back in the day.
Yeah. Yes.
Taking on the Young Bucks and Bullet Club and the New Japan version of Bullet Club. The one that still kicking to this day. It's like the NWO. With like the Horace Hogans and stuff. Not the NWO that we were, not the Bullet Clubs with the Kenny Omegas and the Finn Balors and the AJ Styles, but the New Japan ones that are still kicking around to this day. That
it's evolved over time.
Still using the copyrighted name, if you will.
Yeah.
That match, I don't want to say that match could get thrown away, but that match, there you go. There's a match I could see going maybe under 10 minutes. So you don't think that the 8-man tag could be scrapped?
No, I don't think so because, and not to mention, I think it's going to be at least a 10 to 15 minute match at a minimum because, I mean, the guys have to get their stuff in, of course, but there's so much talent in the ring that anything under 10 minutes it's not doing any justice. And I think that match not only stays on the card, obviously, because the Young Bucks are involved, but it's going to be a 10 to 15 minute match. I would say 10 minimum.
So, again, we're ending up here with Moxley and Tanahashi, the AEW World Championship, the Interim World Championship. Who's keeping the belt warm? You're going with Mox. Yeah, he's the company guy.
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep it on Mox, right? I mean, you got to keep it. I mean, you got to put it on Mox to, kind of keep the seat warm, as you said, to wait for CM Punk's return. And then we have Mox versus Punk for all the marbles.
Yeah. When will we see that? I don't know, but
my guess is as good as your guess, and we'll have to wait and see.
It's too bad. I'm not a big fan of the interim things here, but we'll take the interim AEW World Champion, and we'll have champion versus champion. CM Punk has been the champion before, and a champion versus champion. Both guys holding the belt match. Maybe we'll redo WrestleMania 10, where both belts will be hanging. And whoever takes down both belts is the real champion. We'll find out. But that's AEW and New Japan's Forbidden Door this upcoming Sunday night from the United Center in Chicago. They've been there before. They were there last summer for the CM Punk thing. They do love Chicago. I feel like we could.
It's like the unofficial home of AEW.
I just feel like they're starting to go to some places that they could branch out a little bit more. AEW is kind of weird because one thing they haven't really done yet is they haven't explored other places. We haven't gone to Canada yet. We haven't gone to Mexico yet. We haven't gone to England or Europe yet.
It'll get there. We'll get there.
All
Don't
right.
worry. In due time. Let's worry about the stateside first.
Next week is Fight Week UFC. I only know this because people think it's crazy WWE's going up against UFC's Fight Week, but UFC's WrestleMania week, if you will, is happening next week, and WWE's hosting Money in the Bank from the MGM Garden Arena, a place they've never been before, and WWE's been everywhere. In fact, sometime in history, they might have been there. But as for pay-per-views or televised events, first trip ever to the MGM Grand, and we will talk Money in the Bank next week. For Brandon, I am Jarad. This has been another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast.